When Disney MGM Studios, now known as Hollywood Studios, opened in 1989, it was billed as a working movie studio. As a result, a large section of the park, known as New York Street, was completely inaccessible to guests on foot, instead being accessed via the 2-hour-long backstage studio tour. Prior to the park opening, a few movies had been filmed here, including the 1992 musical Newsies and the short film The Lottery, starring Bette Midler. However, as not many movies were being filmed on New York Street, and MGM Studios had very few walk-in areas for guests, New York Street was opened up to the public by the end of 1989, mainly consisting of photo opportunities, whilst the studio tour now only circled the Washington Square Arch. New York Street would eventually be known as the Streets of America, and over time add several attractions in an attempt to draw guests to see the empty facades of New York City. By April 2016, the Streets of America were closed to make way for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So let's explore the attractions that made up the Streets of America. The original way to experience New York Street was via the Backstage Studio Tour, a 2-hour-long tour beginning at Animation Courtyard, where the tram portion would begin. After the tram ended, guests could browse the Backstage Plaza, featuring the Soundstage Restaurant, the Looney Bin store, and the only restroom stop on the whole tour. They would then enter the hour-long walking part of the tour through occasionally used sound stages before ending back in Animation Courtyard. By 1991, the tour was split into 2 separate attractions, so guests could actually do the walking tour or the tram tour in any order they wanted. By 1996, the entrance to the tram portion of the tour was moved to the end of New York Street, and it was renamed Studio Backlot Tour. Originally part of a walking tour, the attraction now began with a water effects tank demonstration, before guests enter a prop storage unit whilst waiting to board their tram. They would then pass through the costuming and scenic shop departments, through Residential Street featuring a replica of Herbie the Love Bug, past the Boneyard featuring movie props, through the Catastrophe Canyon set, and ending by passing New York Street. At one point, a section of New York Street was decorated to be a part of a Dick Tracy set, featuring a gangster threatening the tram. But like Dick Tracy, it was very short-lived. Whilst New York Street was opened up for guests to walk through by the end of 1989, there was actually very little for guests to do. Whilst the land was open, random seasonal shows would take place as if guests were seeing live recordings of movies, including Ace Ventura and Muppets on Location, to name a few. Still, the land needed attractions, and work began to add some. The first opened on December 17, 1990, tucked behind a cinema facade. The Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie set adventure play area opened, based on the recent blockbuster Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. A few months later, on April 20th, 1991, the Sci-Fi Dining Theatre and Joining Costume Shop opened at the end of New York Street, giving guests something to do on the way from Echo Lake. A month later, on May 16, 1991, Muppet Vision 3D opened in the expansion to New York Street, a Muppet attraction that combined a 3D movie with physical sets, animatronics and a live actor. This was supposed to be part of the larger Muppet Studios land planned for the land, but due to the death of Jim Henson a year earlier, and negotiations falling through with the Henson family, only the completed Muppet Vision opened at MGM Studios. Where a Gonzo pizzeria was planned, Mamma Melrose's Ristorante Italiano opened on September 26, 1991, whilst the Christmas shop, It's a Wonderful Shop, opened next door in June 1992. In 1995, as part of cross-promotion with the new film Pocahontas, a backlot theatre opened at the end of one of the crossroads with the Spirit of Pocahontas stage show, a live-action retelling of Pocahontas. The show would last in the backlot theatre until February 24, 1996. Opposite Muppet Vision on December 15, 1995, Toy Story Pizza Planet Arcade opened, loosely themed to Pizza Planet from Toy Story. although it doesn't look like the restaurant from the film. The most significant addition came on November 24, 1995, when Residential Street opened for guests to walk down so they could see the new Osborne family spectacle of lights, which covered the street every November and December until 2003. After the closure of the Spirit of Pocahontas in February 1996, the Backlot Theatre opened a new show, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a musical adventure, on June 21, 1996. The more permanent stage show retells the story of The Hunchback of Notre Dame and a musical stage show. As mentioned earlier, the Studio Backlot tour entrance moved to New York Street in June 1996, adding a ride to this land. Back at the bottom of the street, the costume shop was replaced by Ellen's Buy the Book on October 2, 1996, a book and coffee shop. After the recent popularity of the Goosebumps book series, Disney wanted to capitalise on this and closed the Looney Bin store in fall 1997 to open Goosebumps Horrorland, Fright Show, and Funland on October 8, 1997. This Goosebumps attraction was a stage show and mirror maze, featuring characters from the Goosebumps series, and ran until November 1, 1998. In January 1999, the Buy the Book store was rebranded again to Variety Stop, no longer themed to the cancelled sitcom Ellen, but featuring the same setup. New York Street would remain the same until 2002, when The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a musical adventure, ended its run on September 28, 2002. Then in 2003, the Residential Street was removed from the Studio Backlot tour, as construction began on a new stunt show, whilst New York Street was renamed the Streets of America in 2004, when a San Francisco facade was added to the back of the Backlot Theatre, and the nearby street now resembled San Francisco, rather than New York. The final addition to the Streets of America opened on May 5, 2005, as part of a happiest celebration of On Earth, for Disneyland's 50th anniversary, when Lights Motor Action Extreme Stunt Show opened in the former location of Residential Street. Now Residential Street had closed, the Osborne family spectacular of lights now donned the Streets of America facades, rather than residential streets, up until its closure in 2016. After 2005, nothing much changed for the Streets of America until 2014. As part of the Frozen Summer of Fun, for the first time in forever, a Frozen sing-along celebration temporarily debuted from July 5th to September 28th, 2014, in the Backlot Theatre, now named the Premier Theatre, before it moved in 2015 to its permanent home in Echo Lake. As Frozen Summer Fun ended, the Studio Backlot tour closed on September 27th, 2014, with no replacement announced, although a year later it would be announced that Toy Story Land was being built in the former location of the tram tour. At the same D23 Expo in 2015, a Star Wars Land was announced to be added to Hollywood Studios, but its location was not confirmed until much later. After the 2015 holiday season, the Osborne family spectacle of lights ended for the last time on January 6, 2016, whilst Toy Story Pizza Planet Arcade closed on January 19, 2016, although that section of the Streets of America wasn't set to close. On April 2, 2016, the Streets of America officially closed as a land, bringing with it the closure of Lights Motor Action Extreme Stunt Show, Honey I Shrunk the Kids Movie Set Adventure, The Writer's Stop, and Studio Catering Company. The next day, what was left of the Streets of America was renamed Muppets Courtyard, featuring Muppet Vision, It's a Wonderful Shop, Mama Melrose's, and the facades on the back of Sci-Fi Dining. In the former location of Toy Story Pizza Planet Arcade, Pizza Rizzo opened, a Muppet-themed pizza eatery loosely based on the original plans for Muppet Studios. A year later, on September 29, 2027, Muppets Courtyard was renamed to Grand Avenue, themed to Los Angeles and featuring a brand new baseline tap house. Grand Avenue remained in this state until 2025, when the Muppet Courtyard section of Grand Avenue is set to close to make way for a Monsters Inc. land. That means the only remaining aspect of the Streets of America to remain after 2025 will be the old facades on the back of Sci-Fi Dining leading up to the entrance to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. The Streets of America were technically an opening day attraction, although guests couldn't walk through them until the end of 1989. In order to add more to the park, the Streets of America became a place to add new attractions, as long as they fit a movie-making theme of that section of the park. But it would be the arrival of Toy Story and Star Wars that will result in the closure of the majority of Streets of America, with the only remnant of the streets being the facade lining Grand Avenue. Do you remember the Streets of America, and would you like to experience any of these lost attractions again?
Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below on what you want to see next on the Distory channel.